Have you ever felt that deep ache when someone you love has drifted away from God? That pain in your heart watching them struggle, knowing they need His love but seem unreachable? Today, I want to share something powerful with you, a strategy that can transform lives and bring people back to God's embrace. This isn't about judgment or forcing beliefs. It's about something much more profound, my dear friend. I know exactly what you're going through right now. That feeling of helplessness when you see someone you care about walking away from their faith, making choices that lead them further from God's path. It's like watching someone you love walking towards a cliff and your voice just isn't reaching them. The pain is real and it cuts deep into your heart every single day. You've probably tried everything, sharing Bible verses, inviting them to church, maybe even having long conversations about faith, but somehow nothing seems to work. The more you push, the more they pull away. I understand that frustration, that sense of defeat that creeps in when your efforts seem futile. It's like trying to hold water in your hands. The harder you squeeze, the more it slips through your fingers. Perhaps it's your child who once was passionate about God, but now won't even mention His name. You remember those precious moments when they would eagerly participate in family devotions, their eyes bright with wonder at God's stories. Now those memories only serve to highlight the painful contrast of their current state. Or maybe it's your spouse who used to lead prayer at dinner but now sits in silence. The empty space where their voice used to be feels like a gaping wound that won't heal. You catch yourself looking at old photos, remembering times when your spiritual connection was strong and vibrant. The silence now speaks volumes, doesn't it? It could be your best friend who once shared your faith journey but has now chosen a different path. The person who used to be your prayer partner, your spiritual confidant, now dismisses faith as something they've outgrown. Each conversation feels like walking on eggshells, carefully avoiding any mention of God or faith. The weight of their choices keeps you up at night. You find yourself constantly praying, wondering what more you could do, what words you could say that might finally break through. That burden feels almost too heavy to bear sometimes, doesn't it? The questions swirl in your mind. Where did I go wrong? What could I have done differently? Is there any hope for change? You've probably experienced those moments of hope when they show a slight interest in spiritual things, only to have that hope dashed when they pull away again. It's like an emotional roller coaster that leaves you exhausted and questioning everything you thought you knew about reaching people for God. The strategies you've tried seem endless. Maybe you've left Christian books lying around strategically, shared inspiring testimonies on social media, or even organized interventions with other believers. Each attempt felt right at the moment, but the results have left you feeling more discouraged than ever. But what if I told you that there's a different approach, one that doesn't involve more arguments, more Bible quotes, or more pressure? What if the key to bringing them back isn't in what we say, but in how we love? This revelation came to me during my darkest moment of struggling with this very situation. You see, God has revealed to me a profound truth that changed everything in my own journey of trying to reach those who've wandered. It's a strategy so powerful yet so simple that we often overlook it in our desperate attempts to fix things. It's been right there in front of us all along, hidden in plain sight. This isn't about manipulation or clever techniques. It's about tapping into the very essence of who God is and how He works in our lives. It's about understanding that sometimes the most powerful sermon isn't preached with words at all. It's lived out in the quiet moments of consistent, unconditional love. The approach I'm about to share with you has transformed relationships that seem beyond repair. I've seen it work in families torn apart by spiritual differences. I've witnessed its power in bringing prodigals home and healing wounds that seemed impossible to mend. I want you to lean in close now, because what I'm about to share with you could completely transform how you approach this situation. It could be the key that unlocks the door that's been so firmly shut. This isn't just another strategy. It's a complete paradigm shift in how we view our role in others' spiritual journeys. Think about the person you're trying to reach right now. Picture their face, remember the joy they once had in their relationship with God. Now imagine what it would be like to see that joy return, to witness their hearts softening and turning back to their Creator. It's possible. I've seen it happen countless times. Remember, God hasn't given up on them, and neither should you. But maybe, just maybe, we need to change our approach. Are you ready to discover how to love them back to God? Because that's exactly what we're going to explore together, and I believe it will revolutionize your understanding of spiritual influence. The journey we're about to embark on isn't easy, but it's worth every step. It will require patience, wisdom, and a willingness to let go of our own agenda. But the rewards, oh, the rewards are beyond anything you could imagine. Lives transformed, relationships restored, and faith rekindled, all through the power of God's love working through you. I want you to take a deep breath right now. Let go of all the failed attempts, all the disappointments, all the hurt. We're starting fresh, with a new perspective and a powerful strategy that aligns with God's heart. Are you ready? Because what I'm about to share could be the answer you've been praying for. The time has come to stop trying harder and start loving smarter, to stop pushing and start drawing, to stop preaching and start living out the greatest sermon ever given, the sermon of sacrificial love. Let's discover together how to love them back to God. This is where everything changes. This is where hope begins to rise again. This is where you'll learn to partner with God in a way that brings restoration, not resistance. Are you ready to begin this transformative journey? We often make a critical mistake when trying to bring others back to faith. We lead with judgment, with rules, with you should and you must. But here's the painful truth. This approach pushes people further away. Our well-intentioned efforts become the very barriers that block their path back to God, creating wounds that may take years to heal. Think about your own journey with God for a moment. What drew you closer, the harsh words of judgment or the gentle embrace of His love? When you stumbled, was it the voice of condemnation that brought you back, or the whisper of grace that reminded you of your worth in His eyes? Yet somehow we forget these fundamental truths when dealing with others, especially those closest to us. Our anxiety about their spiritual condition often leads us to desperate measures. We quote scripture like weapons, wielding Bible verses as if they were magical incantations that could instantly change hearts. In our desperation to see change, we forget that even the perfect words, spoken without love, become nothing more than clanging cymbals in their ears, creating resistance rather than receptivity. The world today is filled with wounded souls carrying deep spiritual scars. Many have been hurt by religious institutions, disappointed by Christian leaders, or betrayed by believers they trusted. These wounds don't heal through logical arguments or theological debates. In fact, our attempts to fix them often only deepen their resistance, adding layers to their emotional barriers. We've created an environment where many feel they must choose between their authentic selves and their faith. They perceive Christianity as a list of restrictions rather than a relationship of love. When every conversation about God feels like an ambush, is it any wonder they build walls to protect themselves? The very mention of faith becomes a trigger for defensive responses. The digital age has added another layer of complexity to this challenge. Social media has become a battlefield where religious debates rage, but real connections are rare. We post, we preach, we argue, but how often do we truly listen? The constant barrage of spiritual content without personal connection has created a generation immune to traditional approaches to faith. Our fear for their eternal destiny can drive us to desperate measures. We try to shock them back to faith with warnings of judgment, failing to realize that fear might modify behavior temporarily, but only love can transform hearts permanently. This fear-based approach often reflects more about our own insecurities than God's methods of drawing people to Himself. Perhaps the most devastating aspect of our current approach is how it mirrors the accuser rather than the advocate. Satan is called the accuser of the brethren, yet too often we find ourselves playing his role instead of reflecting the heart of the Father who runs to meet his prodigal son. We become the very obstacle we're trying to remove. The timing of our interventions often comes from our anxiety rather than God's leading. We rush to correct, to warn, to advise us, without first establishing a foundation of trust and genuine care. It's like trying to perform surgery without anesthesia. Even if our diagnosis is correct, our approach causes unnecessary pain and resistance. We've developed a habit of treating symptoms while ignoring the underlying heart condition. Our quick fix mentality leads us to address behavioral issues without understanding the deep emotional and spiritual needs driving those behaviors. This superficial approach rarely produces lasting change. In our eagerness to see transformation, we often forget that spiritual growth is a process, not an event. We want instant results, immediate repentance, and visible change. This impatience can lead to manipulation, pressure, and ultimately alienation from those we're trying to reach. The way we communicate about faith has become more about winning arguments than winning hearts. We've mastered the art of defending our beliefs, but lost the ability to make them attractive to others. Our apologetics have become apologetic, defensive rather than inviting. Many of us carry the weight of guilt for the times our words and actions have pushed others away from faith. This guilt can paralyze us, or worse, drive us to even more desperate and counterproductive measures. We need to acknowledge this pain and learn from these experiences, rather than letting them define our approach. The church's reputation in society has created additional barriers. Stories of hypocrisy, scandal, and judgment have created a narrative that makes it harder for people to see the true heart of God. We often find ourselves fighting against these perceptions before we can even begin to share about God's love. Our own unresolved issues and insecurities often color our attempts to bring others back to faith. We project our fears, our doubts, and our need for control onto others, creating a dynamic that feels more like spiritual manipulation than genuine care and concern. The pressure we feel to save others can lead to an unhealthy sense of responsibility for their spiritual choices. We forget that even Jesus allowed people to walk away, respecting their free will while maintaining an open heart of love toward them. We've lost sight of the power of presence over preaching. In our rush to speak truth, we've forgotten the importance of simply being present, listening, and loving without agenda. This absence of genuine relationship makes our spiritual conversations feel hollow and inauthentic. The complexity of modern life has created new challenges in spiritual conversations. People are dealing with issues that don't have simple one-size-fits-all answers. Our tendency to oversimplify complex spiritual and emotional struggles can make others feel misunderstood and dismissed. The root of our ineffectiveness lies in a fundamental misunderstanding of how spiritual transformation occurs. We've adopted a mechanical approach to a deeply spiritual process, treating faith like a formula rather than a relationship. But there's a better way, God's way, and it starts with understanding His heart for those who have wandered. The good news is that recognizing these problems is the first step toward finding a better approach. As we begin to understand where we've gone wrong, we can start to discover God's way of drawing hearts back to Himself, a way that reflects His character of love, patience, and grace. The path to bringing loved ones back to God begins with understanding His own method, unconditional love. Just as God's love sees our imperfections, yet remains constant and unwavering, we must learn to love without conditions or requirements. Prayer remains the foundation of this journey, but not just formal prayers. Share your heart with God about your loved ones, expressing your hopes while trusting in His timing. Start by praying about things you believe in without question, your love for them, your hopes for their future, your gratitude for their presence in your life. Creating a safe space for authentic relationships is crucial. When someone stops attending church or expressing faith, don't withdraw friendship. Continue normal activities like going on walks together, sharing meals, or simply being present in their lives. The power of genuine friendship cannot be underestimated. Send funny videos, spend quality time together, or offer help when they're struggling. Remember that a friend loves at all times. Offer your friendship without attaching expectations of their return to faith. Communication must come from a place of empathy and understanding. This involves actively listening without judgment, expressing genuine care, and practicing patience. By communicating openly, we can address unresolved issues while avoiding blame or defensiveness. Humility plays a vital role in this process. Being humble means admitting our own mistakes and faults in relationships. By recognizing our own imperfections, we can find common ground and work towards healing broken bonds. Remember that restoration is a gradual process requiring consistent actions and behaviors. Show your commitment through keeping promises, demonstrating trustworthiness, and maintaining boundaries that ensure everyone's emotional well-being is protected. Never give up hope. Saint Monica's story teaches us that through perseverance, even the most seemingly lost souls can experience transformation. No soul is entirely lost, and our simple, gentle invitations may be all God needs to set miracles in motion. The key is to trust in God's timing. Avoid rushing the process or forcing spiritual conversations. Instead, focus on demonstrating love through actions, creating a safe environment where faith can naturally resurface. Remember that God's grace, not our efforts, inspires true conversion. Our role is to love unconditionally, pray consistently, and trust that love Himself is working in ways we cannot see. The healing process requires acknowledging pain without judgment. Create spaces where emotions can be expressed freely and perspectives can be shared without criticism. This openness helps rebuild trust and understanding. Love must be demonstrated through consistent actions rather than just words. Show genuine care by being present during both joyful and difficult moments. This practical expression of love creates bridges for spiritual reconnection. Forgiveness becomes a powerful tool in this journey. By extending grace just as God extends it to us, we help remove barriers of guilt and shame that may be blocking their path back to faith. Focus on building relationships rather than forcing religious conversations. When trust is established through genuine care and connection, spiritual discussions can happen naturally and meaningfully. Remember that God's love is not based on conditions or personal gain. It's an inherent part of His nature. As we reflect this same unconditional love, we create space for authentic spiritual renewal. Professional help can sometimes be beneficial in this journey. A trained counselor or therapist can provide guidance and support, helping navigate complex emotional and spiritual dynamics. Stay consistent in your own faith journey. Your authentic walk with God, demonstrated through daily living, can become a powerful testimony without words. Avoid cynicism and maintain a positive outlook. Focus on nurturing hope and trust rather than dwelling on past disappointments or current challenges. Remember that love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. This kind of love never fails. It's unconditional, undeserved, and unrelenting. The ultimate goal is not just behavioral change, but heart transformation. Trust that God, who loves them even more than you do, is working in their lives through your faithful demonstration of His unconditional love. Listen closely, because this is where everything changes. God's love has never failed to transform a willing heart. Even in the darkest moments, when hope seems lost, His light continues to shine, beckoning souls back home with unwavering patience and endless grace. This truth has stood the test of time and continues to change lives today. Picture that moment when the prodigal son first glimpsed his father running toward him from afar. Before any words were spoken, before any apologies were made, love had already won the battle. That same love is working right now in the life of your loved one, even when you can't see it. The Father's heart hasn't changed. He's still running toward his children. There's a divine moment approaching, a moment when all your prayers, all your tears, all your faithful love will culminate in a beautiful revelation of God's perfect timing. Just as a seed grows unseen beneath the soil before breaking through to the light, transformation is happening in ways you cannot yet perceive. Every prayer you've prayed is stored in heaven's treasury. The enemy wants you to believe it's too late, that too much damage has been done, that hearts are too hardened to change. But remember, the same power that raised Christ from the dead is at work right now, breaking down walls, healing wounds, and preparing hearts for restoration. No soul is beyond his reach. Your tears haven't gone unnoticed. Every prayer, every act of love, every moment of patient endurance has been seen by the Father. He's collecting every tear, recording every prayer, and weaving them into a testimony of his faithfulness that will impact generations to come. Nothing is wasted in God's economy of grace. Think about the countless testimonies of those who have returned to faith. Each story shares a common thread. Someone who loved them unconditionally, who never gave up, who continued to reflect God's love even when it seemed hopeless. You are that person in someone's story right now, and your faithfulness matters more than you know. The breakthrough is closer than you think. Just as dawn follows the darkest hour, restoration often comes when hope seems most distant. Hold fast to your faith, knowing that God is orchestrating a reunion that will bring glory to his name and joy to your heart. The darkest hour is just before dawn. Every act of love you've shown, every prayer you've whispered, every tear you've shed is building a bridge of grace. These moments aren't just disappearing into thin air. They're being woven together into a beautiful tapestry of redemption that will one day leave you in awe of God's perfect plan. Remember those moments when you've witnessed God's power to transform lives. Think about the testimonies you've heard, the miracles you've seen, the lives you've watched him restore. That same power is at work right now in your situation, even when you can't see it. Your role in this story is crucial. You're not just waiting for change. You're actively participating in God's plan of restoration through your consistent love and unwavering faith. Every act of kindness, every prayer, every moment of patience is building a bridge back to the Father's heart. The enemy's greatest fear is that you'll discover the true power of persistent love. He knows that when we refuse to give up, when we continue to love unconditionally, his strongholds begin to crumble. Your faithful love is more powerful than you realize. Think about the joy in heaven when one lost sheep returns to the fold. The angels rejoice, the Father celebrates, and all of heaven erupts in praise. That celebration is being prepared right now for your loved one, and your faithful love is part of the story. There are moments when God's presence breaks through in unexpected ways. A random conversation, a sudden memory, a moment of clarity. These are divine appointments that your prayers have helped create. Keep watching for these moments of grace. Your love is creating a safe space for return. Just as the father in the prodigal son story kept the lights on and the door open, your consistent love maintains an open pathway back to faith. You're helping to make the journey home possible. The transformation you're praying for may seem impossible from a human perspective, but remember, our God specializes in the impossible. He parts seas, raises the dead, and transforms hearts. Nothing is too hard for him. Every time you choose love over judgment, patience over pressure, grace over condemnation, you're reflecting God's heart. These choices create an environment where genuine transformation can take place. Your consistent love is preparing the way for a miracle. Stand firm in this truth. God's love never fails. When everything else has fallen away, His love remains constant, unchanging, and undefeated. Your loved one's story isn't over. It's simply entering its most beautiful chapter, where grace triumphs and love wins. The prayers you've prayed, the tears you've shed, the love you've shown, none of it has been in vain. God is using every moment to create a masterpiece of redemption that will bring glory to His name and joy to your heart. Your faithful love is creating ripples of grace that extend far beyond what you can see. Just as one small stone can create waves that reach distant shores, your consistent love is having an impact you may never fully understand this side of heaven. This is the moment to stand firm in faith, to keep believing, to continue loving without limits. The greatest miracle often comes just when hope seems lost. Your story of faithful love is about to become someone's testimony of God's amazing grace. You have the power to be God's instrument of love in someone's life today. This isn't just about strategy or technique. It's about becoming a living demonstration of God's unconditional love. Your consistent, patient love can be the bridge that leads someone back to their faith, creating pathways where walls once stood. Every small act of kindness, every prayer whispered in the quiet hours, every moment of patient endurance is creating a pathway of grace. Don't underestimate the impact of showing mercy, extending grace, and loving without conditions. These seemingly simple actions carry divine power that can transform hearts and restore broken spirits. Remember that transformation rarely happens overnight. Just as a garden doesn't bloom in a day, spiritual renewal takes time. Your role isn't to force the flowers to bloom, but to faithfully tend the soil of their heart through consistent, unconditional love. Each day of faithful love plants seeds that will eventually bear fruit. The greatest love story ever told is still being written, and you get to be part of it. Each day presents new opportunities to demonstrate God's love in practical, tangible ways. Your unwavering faith and persistent love are powerful tools in God's hands, working miracles in ways you may not yet see. Think about this. Every great testimony of faith includes someone who never gave up, who kept believing, who kept loving through the darkest times. You are that person in someone's story. Your faithful love today is preparing the way for tomorrow's miracle, creating a legacy of grace that will impact generations. Let go of the need to see immediate results. Trust that God is working behind the scenes, using your faithful acts of love to soften hearts and prepare the way for restoration. Your part is to keep loving, keep believing, keep demonstrating His grace. Even when change seems impossible, take courage in knowing that God's timing is perfect. He sees the bigger picture and is orchestrating events in ways we cannot comprehend. Your role is to remain steady in your love, unwavering in your faith, and consistent in your grace, trusting in His perfect plan. The love you show today may be the seed that blooms into tomorrow's testimony. Every word of encouragement, every act of kindness, every moment of patience is contributing to God's masterpiece of restoration. You're painting with the colors of grace on the canvas of someone's life. Your presence in their life is not an accident. God has positioned you strategically to be His ambassador of love. Every interaction, every conversation, every shared moment is an opportunity to demonstrate His unchanging love and unwavering grace. Remember the power of consistency in your love. It's not the grand gestures, but the daily demonstrations of care that make the most significant impact. Your steady presence and unwavering support speak volumes about God's faithful love. Don't underestimate the impact of your prayers. Even when you can't see immediate changes, your intercession is moving mountains in the spiritual realm. Keep lifting them up before the throne of grace, believing in God's power to transform lives. Your own journey of faith becomes a powerful testimony when lived authentically. As you continue to grow in your relationship with God, your life becomes a living letter of His love, readable by all who encounter you. The restoration process may have moments of setback, but don't let these discourage you. Each challenge is an opportunity to demonstrate the unconditional nature of God's love through your consistent care and support. Your role in this journey is crucial, but remember, the pressure isn't on you to change hearts. That's God's work. Your calling is to love faithfully, pray consistently, and trust completely in His ability to bring transformation. Stand firm in this truth. Love never fails. When everything else has fallen away, arguments, logic, persuasion, love remains. Your consistent, unconditional love can be the key that unlocks a heart's door back to faith. The impact of your faithful love extends beyond what you can see. Like ripples in a pond, your actions of love create waves of influence that touch not only your loved one, but all who witness your unwavering faith and consistent care. Embrace the privilege of being part of someone's restoration story. Your faithful love today is writing chapters of hope in their life. Even if those pages haven't been revealed yet, trust in the author of life to bring the story to its beautiful conclusion. Let your love be marked by wisdom and discernment. Know when to speak and when to remain silent, when to act and when to wait. Trust the Holy Spirit to guide your steps in this dance of restoration. Remember that your own relationship with God is the foundation for loving others back to faith. Stay connected to the source of love, allowing His presence to fill you and overflow to those around you. This is your moment to choose. Will you be the one who loves without limits, who believes without wavering, who hopes without ceasing? The greatest chapters of someone's faith story might just begin with your decision today to love them back to God, one faithful act at a time.